Welcome to Code with Vinod. This is our first video tutorial on EKS cluster. So in this video, we will see the components of Kubernetes, and after then we will create a cluster with the IAM EKS role, and after then we will create a worker node with the worker node rule, and then we will see how we can communicate with our cluster with the help of CLI. So let's go on Kubernetes component diagram. So this is our diagram. So here we can see, so here we have a master node and worker node 1 and worker node 2 and so on. So we can use a number of worker nodes. So in this diagram, the complete diagram, it's a cluster. So inside cluster we have these nodes. So let's explain one by one. So first one is master node. So inside master node we have Kube API server. So Kube API server, it's a kind of front end API server. So it used to communicate with all worker nodes and with database and all the controller with the help of API server we will communicate. So after then we have second one is Kube controller manager. So Kube controller manager, basically we used to control the activity in Kubernetes cluster. So kind of we have some different type of controller like a node controller and and a job controller kind of thing. So node controller, let's say, uh, is responsible for let's say health of node, means our node is healthy or not. So we have some important controller as well. So we will see all these controller in next videos. So next one is Kube scheduler. So Kube scheduler, basically we use to schedule a pod, and it is responsible to specify a specific node to the specific pod. And another one we have etcd. So it's a database which contains all the information related to master node and all other nodes. And let's talk about worker node. So each worker nodes having same components. So in worker node 1 we have kubelet. So kubelet, basically we use to communicate with master node basically. And after then we have kube proxy. So kube proxy, basically we use to communicate our worker node with other worker node, and we can say in another cluster. So a kube proxy basically provides us the endpoints, and inside this we have container engine runtime. So container engine runtime, so in previous Kubernetes versions, so it used to support only Docker runtime. So Kubernetes does not has its own runtime, so it use kind of Docker runtime engine to run the containers. So in nodes we can create the pods as per our requirement, and inside pod we can create a number of containers. So this is the complete cluster architecture. So now we will see how we can create our cluster uh, on AWS EKS. So let's go on browser. So let me refresh it. So here I have already created one cluster, but we will create a new cluster for learning purpose. So let me click on create. So here we can give name as per our convenience. So my cluster 3, and sorry. And next important thing is role, cluster role. So here I have created some roles. So let's see how we can create cluster service role. So uh, while creating cluster service role, there are difference between the cluster based role and worker node based role. So for cluster role we will use some different steps, and while creating role for worker node we will use some different steps. So let's go on IAM management. So let me create role. So here AWS service should be selected, and let me search EKS. So here we no need to select any EC2 or Lambda, we just need to select cluster, EKS cluster. Then next, and then we will give the name, my cluster role 4, and then create. So always we will see here role only having the cluster based policy. So let me refresh this. So our yeah, cluster role 4 is visible. So then next and then next, or we can change the configuration as per our requirement, then create. So now we have created our cluster. So cluster, we can say we have created our master node. So now let's go again on cluster. So it will take some time to create. So meanwhile we will see how we can create worker node. So let me go on my first cluster, and here we will click on compute, and here you can see some worker nodes are already running. So let me click on add node group. So we need to create a worker node group. So worker node group 4, and here we have some already created role, but we will create new role for worker node. So here is some different step we will follow for worker node. Let's click on create role, and in this case we will select common use cases like EC2 or Lambda, we can see. Then next, and here we will search some policies. So on Google you can search the policies for worker node, so easily you can find. So we have some policy, Amazon EKS worker node policy. Let's search here and then select it, clear the filter. Again we have another policy, this one, and then search, and then clear. And now we will create our role for worker node, then we'll give its name worker node role 5. It should be unique. So it's creating. So meanwhile let's go there and refresh. So 5 is created. So next, then next, and create. So while create, so now we will see how we can communicate with our cluster with the help of CLI. So let me do one thing. So let's see how we can communicate with our CLI. So let me open CMD, and here first we need to configure our AWS. So let's see AWS configure. So I have already configured this user EKS user 2 with this region, with uh, US East 2. So same region should be configured. So here this is the same region, and now we will see kubectl get nodes. So let's wait. So we can see here two worker node are already running, but one is not ready, so it is creating. So let's see how we can integrate our cluster our uh, with our CMD. So for this we need to run this command. So this is the command, and then we need to give the cluster name. So this is our cluster name. So I have already run this command, so now it is updated. So this command we need to fire. So let's see again. So now we can see our all worker nodes are running. So let me check the pods. So still now we have not created any pod. So in next video we will see how we can create pods and other things we will learn. So if you have any query, please comment on in comment section. Yeah, thanks for watching.